Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. And today we have another of our interviews with executives of junior mining companies that are making good news. I'm really happy that I've got a good group of sponsors that are doing a lot of great work, and they give me lots to talk about. And I really like unpacking the news with them when it's news. And today, Sokoman made a pretty important news release as far as I'm concerned. They not too long ago, they hit the 463 zone. That 463 zone, I believe, could be a seminal moment for the exploration of the Moosehead project. What stood out to me was thick intersections of very high-grade gold. And you know, Tim, since I saw the interpretation of your structural geologist, I've had visions of sugar plums running in my head. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Anytime, Allan. It's always a pleasure to be here.
So, you know, in an orogenic gold system, you're not looking for really big ore bodies. You're looking for extremely high grade, small ore bodies. And those can be tremendously profitable, as we saw with Kirkland Lake and their Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine, made them the lowest cost producer in the business and kicked off a lot of free cash flow. You've been plugging away holes on your eastern zone that goes in one direction. And then I saw the interpretation of your structural geologist, and he sees that there's a structure coming in at another direction. And that's very reminiscent of the Swan Zone. So you guys are doing some excellent work. And today you announced that you've tagged that 463 zone again.
Yeah, well, I think some people were expecting some assays, and my apologies for that, but we can't put out anything we don't have.
Yeah.
I can make some up, but I don't think that would go over too well. But anyway,
you mean, Tim, you can't produce assays as soon as you drill into a deposit?
No, we don't have that technology yet, unfortunately. I'll leave that to the future. But anyway, no, I mean, it was a good hole in terms of, I guess, ticking the top, if you will, of the iceberg, if you want to call it that. Unfortunately, we did have some issues with the drills. I guess it was the large diameter core must have been putting a little extra strain or something on the rigs. But anyway, we actually had to switch drills out partway through and to maintain the HQ size core. And unfortunately, it did pop up a couple of degrees, just enough, unfortunately, because it is hard to keep a hole straight over 400 meters in structurally, buggered up rocks in places. Sometimes the drill bit can tend to wander a little bit. But anyway, yeah, it looks like, according to our modeling, that we passed over, the thicker, better part of the 463 zone. We still got some quartz veins. We still got some visible gold. We just don't know how much over what width yet. But anyway. The good news is that, we did tick what we feel is the top. The rocks look very similar to what we encountered at the top of the intersection of 463. So it's just a matter of now, getting it cut up, sampled. Again, with Christmas now just, a week away. In fact, I know a lot of people are shutting down at the end of this week, including us. So results will be a little into the new year, perhaps, but anyway, that's fine. We know we've got gold in the box. So yeah, and if you want, I can actually bring up the presentation here.
Yeah, and I mean, from a big stepping back and looking at this from an exploration perspective, that's really what the goal is here to do, right, Tim, is to keep seeing that you're in the right structure, or you're in the right zone, and yes, it's hanging together.
Yeah, for sure. So just to refresh people, we won't go through the whole presentation, but I will bring up, and we've simplified it down just to talk about the holes that are current. So can you see that, Al?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we've cut it right down. Basically, there's the two holes that were discussed in the press release, and of course, hole 463 was colored on the east side of North Pond, drilling into an easterly dipping shear zone. We were doing just fine with that. And then 463 gave us a little bit of a surprise in terms of not just the orientation of it, but the thickness of it. So we kind of stood back and said, well, there must be something unique or different going on here. And so we had Dr. Collar, of course, over to have a look at it, and he basically came up with a very plausible model that basically explains 463 as being just we cut through the hinge zone basically, or where the fold kind of turns around of another footwall splay vein, which we know we have several of.
So to put that into context for folks, you guys were able to put a camera down 463, and then your structural geologist is able to look at everything from a depth perspective. Instead of just looking at a drill hole, he's actually able to see what's around that, and came up with this model that you've got another zone coming in from the opposite direction.
Yeah, plus of course he was able to hold the core in his hand as well, and actually see these things. And you can learn a lot just by putting core back together. Like, first thing we do, of course, when we open up core boxes is align the core so that all the joints are properly. You don't have core with angles coming in like this. Your core is all nicely lined up, and you can actually figure out quite a bit from that in terms of that, but you don't know its absolute position in the hole. And this is where marrying, obviously, logging the core with a televiewer movie, it helps tremendously. And
just for people's knowledge, your structural geologist is quite a talented guy.
Yeah, he's very much in demand, and we're very fortunate to have. He had experience with the project before we actually acquired it in 2018. He came over and had a look at it with when Altius were still owners here, and so we obviously let's stick to consistency. And he was very grateful to come back and see the progress that we had made in 2019. Then COVID hit, so he wasn't able to come over for 3 years, and then we presented him with this this little nugget. And he's very keen. He's still very much a fan of the project, and we're in constant contact with him. In fact, 505, unfortunately the weather is not very good here today, so we were hoping to teleview hole 505 today, but it looks like the actual equipment is somewhere where we're not.
And Tim, this televiewer stuff and this interpretation by by a very talented structural geologist, this is really important stuff that I don't think a lot of investors in the junior mining space really understand, because it's important, because you're looking for really a needle in a haystack, and you want to be sure that you're tagging that needle, because those needles in orogenic gold systems are very valuable.
Oh, for sure. And and while we still have this slide on here, so anyway, to finish about the televiewer, we hope to get the instruments in tomorrow and down the hole while the rig is still there. And because the hole did flatten a little bit, what we're going to do is we're going to stay on the same setup and just tip the hole up a couple more degrees, just to allow us to cut that center part of the zone as we had intended to in the first one. But you know what? It's still good information. We did get some gold, and I still love the story.
Yeah.
So
I don't blame you. I do too.
So what this purple thing here is, now based on Dr. Collar's interpretation, it's more of a flat lying body. So you're actually looking down, say, on a hot dog roll there. Basically, you're looking down on it. So it's a fairly flat lying thing. So we need to maintain, basically the same sort of depth of penetration with the drill holes, which is why the flattening of the hole unfortunately made us kind of nick the top of it. So let's just look at what Dr. Collar put together. So here's the eastern trend. And the down plunge, of course, originally, 463 ended up being about 370 meters down dip from surface, which is getting down, and we're starting to get down fairly deeply. And anyway, so the initial thought was that it was a plane of some sort or some description that quite easily fit through, the drilling that had already taken place. Some of the holes from 2018 and 2019 actually stopped short. So it just goes to show, when you're in these systems, how deep should you drill all your holes? Maybe to the end of the rods. But anyway, obviously you have a mark.
Was there any alteration in those holes 18 and 37, or did you?
Yeah, well, we're in the footwall here of the Eastern Trend, and that was one of the other things that was in the press release, is that hole 505 did nick the underside, the underbelly, if you will, because that's the way it was set up to pass by or close to. We weren't sure quite exactly how much of it we were going to get.
Of the Eastern Zone.
Of the Eastern Trend, and we did hit some very nice mineralization in that hole that obviously we'll be putting out as well. And basically, it's more support for that portion of the zone and additional information. There is some nice visible gold in it, and I'll be honest. And so we're looking forward to some numbers, and that would be kind of up in this area here. It's about halfway down to the target. But anyway, back to the 463 zone. So when hole 463 intersected it, it was actually passed through the Eastern Trend and into the footwall. So the footwall seems to be a very good place to look. And in fact, I think the depths that we got the zone in 505, the hole that we talked about today, and let's move on to that one. So here's 505 at Collard, and here's where it intersected either a wave or a dip or a thickening of the Eastern Trend here. And I think from top to bottom, there's a small barren zone in between two vein zones, but it's about 22 meters of good, strong quartz veining that that had visible gold throughout it. It'll run, just a matter of how much.
Right.
Then we passed into the footwall, and this is where, of course, where we had hoped. This was now it's the next proposed hole is this blue line you see here. We wanted to kind of intersect it in the middle just to be safe, but of course the hole flattened a little bit and we ended up getting a nick in it. So this box here is what this is here. This is enlargement of this here. So,
and what are those hatched lines representative of?
Quartz veins. Those would be gold bearing quartz veins. So here's say a main vein that would be in the Eastern Trend. So we've got another splay coming off, and it just happened to get folded around, and 463 just happened to cut through where the hinge is. And we all may know the hinge zone as a very good story at Dixie Lake for
Great Bear.
Help me out there, thank you. So hinge zones are very good places. They can be rather sort of, I guess, short strike length, but it's the down plunge, or in this case.
And why those hinges are important is that you get broken up rock there that the fluids are allowed to kind of disperse in. Is that correct, Tim?
And for thickening as well, which helps explain why a 4-meter quartz vein can become 20 or whatever sort of things, because you're cutting through this, because this would all be quartz through here, mostly quartz with some wall rock fragments or whatever. So it gets thicker in these hinge zones, and that's what we think. We still think it could be something slightly different as well. I mean, you don't know until we get, we're going to need to put at least a handful of holes in here, maybe 5 or 6 at various levels, just to make the model, either validate it or change it slightly. And the thing is that we need to chase this now. Obviously, we want to cut through where it's thickest, and then try and get down to the bottom again. So 3 cuts through it, but then in and out of the page is the strike length. So it's flat. It's like I said, going back to this image here. You're looking down on the hot dog roll here. You're looking along the hot dog roll here. Okay. So that's basically the story. It still makes sense, and until we know different, it's a great it's our model, and like I said, I'm pretty happy with it. I think, like I said, hole 505, which is this trace here, has gotten mineralized quartz veins at the very top. And if we look at, if we go to, this is the top now of hole 463, not 505. So this is news. This has already been pressed. So
Yeah.
we're good to put this out. So we think that hole 505 cut through somewhere in here, like discontinuous quartz veins with visible gold in them.
By the way,
really hoping to do.
in your presentation, you have some core from Fosterville Swan Zone, and it reminds me a lot of what you just showed there.
Yeah. Actually, this is kind of where we were targeting, was to hit, and this is maybe a lot to ask, you know, to cut through the middle of a 3.5 meter wide zone at 400 meters depth. I mean, you got to be pretty good, you know, and the drillers tried. Give them credit, they're great guys. And I mean, they don't push it, they listen to us, they know how important this is. So this is kind of what we were hoping to get. And we probably cut through, you know, 4 boxes up the hole from it. So
Okay.
a really good try. And like I said, this is pretty much what we see in 505. So,
Okay.
but
Nice.
obviously we hope the next hole goes through somewhere close to this. And then maybe another hole down in the lower stretch, just to, you know, give it its really, you know.
And then would you look to follow more of that hot dog roll along strike? So first you want to get a few holes into the side through the hot dog roll, and then you'll follow it along its
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you got her.
Uh-huh.
So more of that hopefully to come. But
and then
like
I think there's a bigger question to ask too, Tim, is where did this hot dog roll get the mineralization from?
Well, it probably didn't come down. It probably came from below.
Right.
We're thinking, right? So,
Right.
you know, things generally do rise in the crust. But anyway, again, a lot more drilling, Allan, you know, and, you know, so people, you know, we're going to be drilling for a long time. I mean, we got 80,000 meters of our 100,000 meter. We're going to stop saying 100,000 meter program. We're just going to say
keep going.
phase 6 is ongoing indefinitely. You know, it's just going to run all the way into next year. And, you know, with gems like this to hunt down, you know, we're going to have a lot of fun.
You're in a hell of an enviable position as far as I'm concerned as an explorationist, Tim, looking at an orogenic gold system. And was, you know, one other thing that I noticed about your plan view of the Swan Zone is that there's some pretty complex faulting in there. There you go. And were you seeing any of that in your drilling? Did you learn anything about that, Tim?
Well, actually, I think I mentioned it in the press release, but just to continue with the structural story here, I don't know if I can make this any bigger or not, but can I make that? Can I zoom in here somehow? Anyway, because it would be nice to see this a little bigger. But just look, this is the Swan Zone. This is this yellow hatched striped areas are areas with, you know, that's the real juicy stuff.
Yeah.
How many orientations can you see this mineralization at?
That's why I can't
going all over the place, right?
That's why I can't stop looking at that model that you're a structural geologist, because I'm seeing the same thing there. The orientations are from multiple directions. Yeah.
So and you're going to get these things. You're going to get these things. Now I'm going to go back to hole 505. The hole pretty much ended in veining, Allan, all the way down to 559 meters.
Holy.
We drilled through almost, well, that was at 390 to 4 something, 150 meters of variable veining. Some places a little more intense than others, but it just goes to show that, look, open, right? So, I mean,
well, it's open. It could be open to the east, and it could, as it dips to the east, and it could also be open as you're dipping to the west.
Yeah. So again, you know, we will get down deeper, but I mean, we don't want to just start chasing you know, the chicken across the train tracks and lose our head here, right? So
right.
You know, we're going to be doing this in the same way that we've been doing it for the last year and a half, 2 years. build it outwards, build out from the known. And
Yep.
because you could drill a hole 100 meters down, you don't know if you missed it by 10 meters, 20 meters, 30, 40, 50 meters.
Or 2 inches.
Right. So, or 2 inches, which we have seen, mineralization that abrupt sometimes in some holes. We're coming along through, weekly veins, sandstone, and then boom, you come to a little shear, and it's like 2 centimeters, and there's visible gold.
Wow.
That's how quickly you can be in it.
Huh.
So, you really have to be careful and take your
And
time
do you
with these
see
things.
much in the way of alteration, Tim, that when you're getting close to these veins, or?
Well, you start to see some changes in the bedding, and we're attributing that to it's partly. I'm struggling for the word. I'm not a structural geologist, but there are terms for these sorts of things. But anyway, in terms of alteration, if I may, it's difficult to see it. But if you left this core outside, let's just go. Like, you see how gray this core is through here?
Yeah.
Gray, medium gray, dark gray. This would be red brown in 4 months if you put it all outside. These rocks are completely saturated in carbonate, iron carbonate.
Okay.
About a 2-kilometer wide swath of iron carbonate that basically is centered on the main structure that rips through the Moosehead property, the Valentine Lake Shear Zone. So I think I mentioned this in a previous message. When you start seeing volumes of fluid flowing through rocks like that, that's a very good sign and a very good thing, a very good positive thing for making significant zones of mineralization, no matter what you're looking for, VMS, gold,
Absolutely.
anything.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, all these rocks in the footwall here, I mean, we expect when this hole is underway, and unfortunately we're shutting down for the Christmas period, but you got to get a break sometime.
Yeah.
When this hole goes through, there will be veining pretty much, all the way through it. And, we're sampling like 300 continuous meters of core, just because we don't want to miss anything.
And that's the same thing. Do you have on your presentation that little piece of Swan Zone? That's the same stories, veining all over the place.
Actually, my
there you
Fosterville
go.
rock.
There you go.
Right.
Look at that.
This is actually about a 5-pound rock sitting on top of a box of core from Moosehead.
And look at it, it's identical, the same kind of country rock, the same kind of little veins, veinlets of quartz going through that, just like at Moosehead.
And disseminated pyrite and arsenopyrite in this particular section. So, the model has been justified, I think, more times than than it not needs to be, but certainly to verify that, yeah, we are chasing something that's obviously very lucrative.
Yeah, wow, it's a fantastic story. I follow a lot of these, well, not a lot, but I follow a significant amount of these orogenic gold systems, Tim, simply because you find a Swan Zone and it's a company maker. And when you said that tip in the iceberg, I think you're definitely on the iceberg now. And now the rest of the job is to figure out the rest of that iceberg. But it's nice to tag into an iceberg, right, Tim?
It sure is, Allan. And I really think that this model will stand. And but maybe with a modification here or there. There's no cut and dried reason or way that gold gets put in any kind of a system. But and no two deposits are exactly alike. I guess that's the other key too. And there could be a later fault here that cuts this thing and moves it 50 meters or 20 meters or something like that.
But
that's why you need that tight space drilling.
Even that kind of a challenging situation would then give you another fault you have to start following.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, we certainly see new structures that we didn't see higher up the hole. In fact, I think around 275 meters. So The gold that we saw in the eastern trend would be about here, about 190 or so, about 80 meters below that. Maybe that's what these things here are. There's a bit of visible gold here as well in a structure that we didn't know was there, because we weren't drilling it the right way.
And there again, Tim, you're going back to that Swan Zone model. That's what you saw, complex structures and mineralization coming up at several different orientations.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, it's nice to see mineralization outside of the main eastern, because the eastern trend is still mineralized.
Right.
So this represents something separate.
Right, right. And that coming in at a different orientation I keep looking at your presentations, and those are the two slides I keep looking at, Tim, is the one with the interpretation of the model by your structural geologist, and the view of the system at Swan Zone. I just keep looking at those and going, wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, and this is just a slightly different kind of look at what we thought was happening with 463 first, was that it was just a simple splay coming off of that. Now we see it as maybe a folded splay, and that generally, but not always, there's a lower shear zone that kind of boxes in that little anastomosing sort of sequence. And here you're going to get, and these are the other shear zones that we're starting to see. And here where 505 cut through, maybe up here, this is where we got the gold in, you know, the upper zone, the 22 meters that we see VG. These could be some of the new structures that we're seeing down below. I mean, we may have to start drilling this from two directions at the same time, just to make sure we don't miss anything. Like I said, you know, people think, I'm sure not everybody, but you know, I'm sure there's people out there who think they must know everything there is to know about this property by now. Not a chance, brother. And I don't mind saying that. You know, it is what it is. We'll keep drilling and until we stop getting gold.
Well, and that's another thing that I appreciate. I listened to a recent interview you said, and you know, some people might be pushing for a resource, and you said something like, well, when I stop finding gold, then I'll know it's time to do a resource.
Yes.
And look at, you've been at it for a couple of years, and now you've hit a jewelry box.
Yeah.
Thick intersection of high grade. I mean, you know, well, so you want to do it on a different model? It's I don't know what the investors think sometimes, how easy this business of exploration is, Tim. It's like falling off a turnip truck.
Yeah.
Well, you've fallen off that turnip truck and you got something good started at 463 and now 505 and whatever the next number is. But I sure think you guys are onto something tremendous in an orogenic gold system.
Well, thank you, Allan, for the vote of confidence. And yep, it's up to the drills.
Yeah, the truth machine will tell us the truth.
Yes.
So far, so good, Tim.
Thank you, and listen to all your listeners who tune in. I see why they tune in. I mean, you're an excited and enthusiastic and knowledgeable host, and I do appreciate getting on and you know, filling in on our latest stories and news. And to all of them and you, a very Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad, I guess, is it?
Yeah, down here in Mexico, we say Feliz Navidad. But Tim, you know, I'm sure that my viewers are appreciative of you coming on to talk about a little deeper dig into the news, and that you're a sponsor, so it helps me put out a lot of content. And you know, I love this stuff, so I get to do what I love, and your team is part of that, Tim. And I'm a big cheerleader of what you guys are doing, and you and your team have a fantastic Christmas break. You deserve it.
Well, thank you, and we'll still be working away behind the scenes. You know, there will be a scattered, you know, bit of information coming in. Like I said, the televiewer, hopefully we'll get that done tomorrow. The lab will be shutting down for a period over Christmas as well, so that'll slow things down by a little bit. But you the new year is just around the corner, and I'm looking forward to a pretty important year in 2023, Allan.
Well, I can't wait to see some more interpretation of the zone from your next set of televiewer look down that 505 hole, Tim. So keep your structural geologist, send him some stuff to do there over the holidays.
He's got lots to do.
Excellent, Tim. Well, let me close it off. And as always, thanks a lot for coming on, Tim.
You're welcome, Allan.
So there you go, folks. I really believe that, well, I've been following this Moosehead project for a long time because I'm a big fan of orogenic gold systems. They can be fantastic money makers, really to make do what it did for a company of Kirkland Lake size, to find the Swan Zone, then become the lowest cost producer in the industry with one of the best performing gold stocks in the mining sector, and ultimately to get bought out because of what they were doing at the Swan Zone. That's why you look for these things. And when you look at a company like Sokoman with only a $50 million valuation, and we didn't even get into the other projects that they have, but we wanted to keep it on this news today. But you could actually find more of the interviews that I've done with Tim about some of their other assets. They've got a heck of a good portfolio. Obviously Moosehead is the numero uno. What they found at the 463 zone is why. But they have other assets, and at a $50 million valuation, I think it's very reasonably priced for people that want to be part of looking for a new Swan Zone here in Canada, or there in Canada, I guess I should say. I never forget my Canadian roots, even though I live in Mexico. So as always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors, go check out my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News for the great interviews I've done with Tim over the years. And also go to their website, look at their maps, look at their corporate presentation. You'll learn a lot of great information, and you'll understand why I'm so enthusiastic when I talk to Tim. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.